respect her game. It's been a long time coming. We have our guest Charlotte North on with us, who is one of the most decorated lacrosse players in the world, not just female, but one of the most decorated in the world, but also very familiar with Massachusetts, a BC Eagle, former BC Eagle, and you've got some TV experience. We met a couple of weeks ago, maybe even months by now, but I've been so excited to have you on and just kind of share your story. So welcome to the podcast and for guest hosting with us. Thanks for giving us your time.
Of course. I'm so excited. It has been a long time coming, and I'm really excited to do this with you. I love this platform. I love everything that you are doing. I'm inspired by it, and so I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. We had a really nice chat in one of our little glass offices at Nesson a couple of weeks ago, like I said, and I felt like we clicked right away. I loved hearing your story. I feel like you're very personable and charismatic, and I know I was reading a lot about your resume, so to speak, and your journey to lacrosse, but I want the fans to kind of get a deep dive in. The biggest thing that surprised me was that lacrosse was not your first love. So it was basketball and you grew up, of course, in Dallas, so you can kind of share your story, but it was basketball, and then you picked up lacrosse. I don't know what age most women pick it up. I don't know if they pick it up as kids, but I guess 12, 13 years old is when you picked it up. And you said in one article I read that you were really bad, which is hard to believe considering how good you are now. But tell me the story about basketball first, or maybe growing up, one of 5 kids. I'm also one of 5. What was life like as a young Charlotte North?
Life was full of sports, but one of those sports was not lacrosse, like you mentioned. I was absolutely in love with basketball from the second I could walk. I had a basketball in my hands, dribbling up and down the house. I wanted to play in the WNBA. That was my lifelong dream. It's in every journal that I have, dating back to 5th grade on. And so I love playing just about any sport that I could get my hands on. But growing up in Dallas, Texas, lacrosse wasn't a big sport. It wasn't very prevalent. It was traditionally an East Coast sport. The sport was originated by Native Americans in the Northeast, and it is a native game, but it had not spread to the West or the South like it has now, which is amazing to see the growth that the sport has had in the United States. But I had no idea what the sport of lacrosse was, and so I played everything from track, softball, I played basketball, field hockey, you name it. And basketball was the one that I really had my eyes on. I loved watching the NBA, college basketball, the WNBA. And I loved how fast-paced it was. I loved having idols in the game like Steph Curry, people who are maybe a little bit undersized, who have kind of changed the way people play or people watch the game and view how you can be as a player. And then, once I learned what lacrosse was, that all kind of translated over. But when I was young, I couldn't put the basketball down. One of 5, and all my siblings played sports as well. So we got pretty competitive in the household. But I was oftentimes at a park or running around trying to find some friends to play sports with. And I was pretty in love with the sport of basketball.
Where are you in the 1 of 5? Oldest, middle, youngest? Where do you land?
Dead middle. So I was oftentimes, running around like crazy, stirring the pot, creating chaos, and showing off my competitive fire. But I had a lot of fun, and I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
Did your other siblings go far in any of their respective sports?
They stopped playing sports at the end of high school, so I was the only one who went on to play collegiate sports and now professionally. All of them, have great strengths in other categories of life, really smart individuals, but I learned a lot from them growing up, especially in the backyard when we beat up on each other playing whatever sport it was. But once I learned what lacrosse was, my older sister actually played for a little bit in high school, so we shared the same field, but, not as much of sports in there everyday life as it is for me right now.
So funny. So I'm 1 of 5 too. I'm 4th of 5, but there's a huge age gap, same parents, but huge age gap between the eldest and youngest. So 16 years between my sister, who's the oldest, and then my youngest brother. But different, like we, jack of all trades, master of none kind of in terms of sports. Like we were all pretty athletic, but no one was going far in anything. But I joke about how, I'm sure the siblings, made you tough, made you fight for every point. And in my family,
Absolutely.
We're a family of talkers who do not shut up. Everyone's a storyteller in my family. So we always joke that I And I have so many stories of me around the dinner table. Or what I really value growing up is we had family meals together all the time, like no TV. It was family dinner every single day, 7 days a week, family breakfast. So those are some of my core memories. But my siblings joke how I had to fight for when I was a kid to like get my story in. So they'd all be talking about, whatever happened at high school. And I would be like, well, this happened to me in elementary school. And I'd be talking about, whatever, like my friend stealing my crayons or whatever it was. Um, but we joke about how the fact that I had 5 kids to fight with for storytelling turned me into a broadcaster,
Oh my
because I had
gosh.
to like learn how to tell the story. So I guess you can thank your siblings too for teaching you how to fight for every point, right? Because siblings do not give
Absolutely.
anything away.
Yeah, being the fourth of five, my gosh, I'm sure you found your voice quickly and found where to use it and how to, be confident in your voice, and you can see that in the career you've had. That's amazing. It's really cool to hear a story like that.
Yeah, no, I love bonding with people who've had a lot of the sibling rivalries. But something you said that I wasn't planning on getting into, but it surprised me, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I want to know if you know more about the origin of lacrosse because you mentioned it being a native game, and I love that you mentioned that. So many things we don't pay homage to, or where they started, or how they developed. So, do you know any more about that you can share? And if not, totally cool.
Absolutely. I mean, the history of the sport of lacrosse is one that is remarkable. It dates back as the earliest sport that was played in North America, which is really interesting to read about and to learn about, especially being so involved in the sport of lacrosse. But it was founded by the Native Americans. It was played across acres and acres of land, both men and women, and it was kind of a peacemaking game. They call it the creator's game, and also the medicine game because it was used, as a time for people to come together and to be out on the field and to play a beautiful sport that is involved with a lot of skill, a lot of speed, a lot of camaraderie, and building of a team. And so oftentimes it was used to settle with other groups of people. And so the Iroquois up in the Six Nations in northern parts of North America founded this game, and so we oftentimes think back to where it all came from once we step out onto the field and play the modern version of lacrosse. The equipment looks a lot different, a lot of the rules look a lot different as well, but so much has stayed the same because of the roots of the sport. And gosh, we are so lucky that this sport was created by them, by the creator, and is given to us. And we are serving that role and continuing to push the game and grow the game. A lot of us work so hard every day to grow the game, like I talked about, not only in North America, but internationally as well. And lacrosse, I know we'll get to this in a little, but lacrosse is now a part of the Olympics in 2028. And how amazing to see, its origin dating all the way back to pre-18th century and now into an era where lacrosse is breaking barriers. It's in a spot it's never been in before on the women's side, at least. It actually was in the Olympics on the men's side way back in early 20th century. But we're really fortunate to be in the spot that we are, and we owe a lot to those that founded this amazing game.
I love that. I didn't know about that history at all. Is that something that you yourself, went out of your way to learn, or does the lacrosse community try to teach that to people playing?
The lacrosse community does an amazing job of spreading the knowledge of where this game came from. And a lot of times, our professional league, Athletes Unlimited, and the men's professional league, the PLL, right now, pay a lot of respects in honoring the origins of the sport. And we play certain games dedicated to the indigenous tribes that played the sport of lacrosse and grew the game and its roots. And so we do a lot of talking and learning about where this game came from because, again, we act as now the next generation of players who are trying to grow the game and get more sticks in kids' hands and show how incredible the sport really is, but also not to let the history, go untalked about. So we're really fortunate to be in the spot we are in, and I'm really lucky that I've learned so much about it, and I want to continue to help others learn about where this sport came from.
That's awesome. So thank you for sharing that background. We'll get back to kind of your story with it. Again, you loved basketball. You mentioned that a lot of sports in your family. Take us to the moment you picked up playing the first, I don't know if it was with siblings or was it, I think a friend invited you to
Yes.
play. Is that right? And you said you weren't really good. And normally when people aren't good at something, after a while, they get discouraged. What kept you in it?
That's right. I mean, I was quickly shocked at how much skill it requires. And so I talked about how many sports I played. I wanted to be running up and down any court or field I could find. And so lacrosse requires a lot of athleticism. And so the first time I picked up a stick, I quickly realized, you could get by with speed and being athletic. And my best friend in 7th grade played for the school team. I went to a private school in Dallas, Texas, and so she encouraged me to come try out for the team, and she let me borrow her backup stick, which at the time it looked like almost a tennis racket, barely any pocket to the front of the stick where that ball sits. And I could not catch and throw. I could barely pick up a ball off the ground. And so it was a little discouraging. But I was around my friends and I was on a team and we were competing and I loved every aspect of that as well. But I wanted to get better. I wanted to learn more about the sport. And I quickly went up to my coaches and asked them as many questions as I could about what they knew about the sport and what I could work on. And so it was a story of perseverance for a long time because, when you can't catch and throw, it becomes incredibly frustrating and you kind of don't know where to turn to next. But I fell in love with that process of getting better and developing my own style of the game, which I also did in basketball. And I mentioned, some people I looked up to in that space. I quickly learned the same kind of system in lacrosse, and I wanted to kind of create my own path and create my own style of playing the game. And so I credit my coaches and my friends who kept me around and pushed me to be better and helped me grow. But it was a frustrating beginning that turned into a pretty epic story.
Yeah, and the story continues, as you mentioned, the Olympics 2028, and I know that that's a goal of yours, as well as broadcasting. We're going to touch on that a little later, World Championships. But okay, so you're falling in love with the game. You're like, wow, this is way harder than I thought. And so you said you wanted to develop your own style. You had coaches, friends, family kind of push you to be better. As you know, I work in hockey and I think of all the ways that hockey players get better. In the summers, they do a lot of edge work with figure skaters because it's a
For
complete
sure.
different type of skating, right? So they learn even like the edges of how they're on their skates make them that much better. What were some of the skills that there's cardio with the running and obviously stick handling and so on and so forth. But what were some of the skills that you were working on, slash you mentioned you wanted to develop your own style? What did that turn into for you?
It's a great question. I really love the process of skill development in every sport, including hockey and all the sports we've mentioned. There's so many intricacies and details of what goes into how to develop into a good player. And so for lacrosse, it was the ball handling aspect and it was the stick work. And so you play with a stick that's a little bit different than something like a hockey or a field hockey stick. It has a netting at the front of it where that ball sits. And so your ability to handle the ball and catch and throw and be able to use your stick with both hands, all that stuff comes from repetition and practice, just like any other sport. And so focusing in on that stick work and almost the creativity behind it, things that, I hadn't seen most players do, but I'd seen some players do at the highest level, players that I looked up to when I started this sport. I wanted to emulate those creative aspects of the game, whether it was throwing one-handed passes or using my stick behind my back or all these different sorts of moves that, weren't as quote-unquote traditional in the sport of lacrosse. And so I credit all the people that I watched play at the collegiate and professional level and really looked up to kind of emulate their style. People like a Kayla Trainer at Syracuse, Michelle Tumalo, who also played at Syracuse, they kind of paved the way to show what was possible with that stick work and flair and creativity aspect of lacrosse. And so I became obsessed with that. And I went to a brick wall behind my house almost every single night when I was in middle school and high school. And I worked on, thousands and thousands of different types of passes against that brick wall. And the frustration we talked about, a lot of times that ball went sailing over my head into the parking lot and I'd be chasing balls all night long. But this wall was lit and it had a great little spot for me, and I could go at any hour of the day when my homework was done and I was ready to focus on lacrosse. And so I really dove into that aspect of skill development and, the conditioning and strength training and all that stuff that came with, playing other sports as well. But I really loved the aspect of creating my own style around what I could do with my stick.
So you were really, sounds like self-motivated, because I grew up, if there was one sport, like I said, we kind of did them all in the family, but one that my dad pushed was tennis because he played growing up, and he would encourage us all the time. He was busy. He had 3 jobs. He was working nights and summers and everything. He was busy. He couldn't always kind of coach us like a dad would. So he would encourage us when he was working. He said, go play against a wall for, you can learn so much against a wall. And we had one like a minute from our house. And I would always like go for 20 minutes. I was like, oh, I'm tired. I'm good. Like if he wasn't watching me, if he wasn't telling me to do it, I was like, I'm going to go do something else. Hence why I do not play. I wish, lots of regrets there, but we'll save that for another show. You sound like you're self-motivated, or was there anyone pushing you, or were you just like, I want this so badly?
It's a big part of sports, right? Can you find a way to really dive into how to get better, but on your own time away from practice? And you think about your teammates. That's what drove me a lot of the way, was being better for my teammates. But I also was just in love with the process. Like I mentioned before, I wanted to get better every day, but I wanted it to be, my own type of style. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about the game. So I would, whether I was at the wall, whether I was watching some YouTube clips of my favorite players, or I was out, after hours, post practice, grabbing one of my teammates and asking to shoot with them, or maybe on the team goalie. It was all the little things that I love so much about, the process of getting better at something. And while at times I wanted to pack up shop after 10 minutes because I had missed too many balls or the shots had gone wide, 500 times in a row, I really just loved the sport and I loved having my stick in my hands. And I learned that quickly when I was walking around the house, and I kind of would pick up my stick when I was watching TV. I'd be cradling, bouncing the ball up and down. I got yelled at a lot for bouncing balls in the house, which was never allowed. But I did it anyways because I didn't want to put my stick down. I kind of realized how obsessed I was with the sport. And, I still have that feeling to this day. And I go out and I work on the same types of skills every day because, it's true. You can't perfect something until you've really spent as much possible time as you can on that specific detail of the sport to then really master that and move on to the next thing. And so there's always things I'm trying to learn and get better at. And that's a lot of wall ball. It's a lot of playing by yourself, but I found it almost therapeutic to go, up to that brick wall that had one singular light on it, put in some headphones, put some music on, put a podcast on, and work on my craft and have some fun with it as well. It never got boring because I love, evolving and learning and being inspired by other players. And, I hope to do the same for the next generation of lacrosse players.
Yeah, you're firing me up. I want to leave and go hit a ball against the wall right now. Like I'm going to go play tennis
I
by
can give you a
myself
stick tomorrow. I can give you a lacrosse stick to try.
Or learn lacrosse. Exactly. You should definitely consider coaching one day. Definitely motivating speaker there. But no, that's awesome. I love hearing that and the self-motivation. And clearly you need that to get to kind of where you are today. Let's fast forward to your college career, 2 different colleges. Why the switch to BC?
Yeah, great question. That was a hard decision for sure. So I was really fortunate to have incredible club lacrosse coaches down in Texas. They moved down to Texas and they started a club team. So when I was in high school, I played for their club, and they helped me get recruited at club tournaments, which were, of course, on the East Coast. So it was a bit of a hike to get there. I only went to a few of them, but my coaches did a great job of helping me kind of put my name out there and get on the radar of college coaches and fulfill my dream ultimately of playing collegiate lacrosse. And so I was lucky enough to be recruited at a tournament in Virginia by Duke University, and it was actually on one of the last days of playing. It was on a Sunday. I'll never forget it. We were on a field. It was blazing hot, and the coaches came by from Duke, and they reached out to my club coaches following and asked me to come on a visit. And I was obsessed with the school. I was just in awe of what their program was. and I committed shortly after to go play for Duke University. And I had the best 2 years there. It was a great experience. My teammates were very inspiring, and they pushed me to be better in all aspects of being a Division I athlete, whether that was on the field, extra hours of training, whether that was in the weight room, whether it was in the classroom, or just being a good teammate and doing what the team needs whenever they needed something. So I had a great experience. After my sophomore year, I went home for the summer, and I had no idea what was coming next in my future months, but I kind of took a step back and reevaluated my personal goals and my journey, both, in school and then on the lacrosse field as well. And my love for the game never dwindled. I was as obsessed with the sport as I was when I first started playing to then and to now. And so I just kind of reassessed where I wanted to go. And so I realized Duke was a great fit for me. Might not have been the perfect fit. So I decided to put my name into the transfer portal, which was very new, actually, back when I was a rising junior in college. And so it was a little bit of the Wild West, and I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what the process was like, but I entered into the portal, which was a scary moment because all change, it could be scary. It could be intimidating.
Yes.
But I did it, and I really vividly remember right after I went in, the Boston College head coach, Acacia Walker-Weinstein, she FaceTimed me, and it was almost instantly. And I could feel right away her energy, her passion, the culture she's built, the success that she's had year after year with her program, now 2-time national championship coach, and the rest of her staff were just phenomenal. And I got to go on a visit there, and I learned that I was very, very grateful and honored to be asked to be a part of that team. And so I wanted to go there 100%, and I was very lucky I got to do so.
Yeah, and I know so much has happened to your, first of all, good for you for following your intuition, especially at such a young age. It sounds like there was a gut feeling or something was creeping in, and that is so hard to do. In my late 30s, I'm like, am I just overthinking this, or is this what I should be doing? It's a very difficult thing, and like you said, scary to make that change. And the funny thing about choices we make, we never know how the other one most likely would have turned out, and if we don't, and that's the scary part. Like for me, I want to split into two people and be like, let me just do both and then make a decision. But you can't,
Exactly.
you can't do that. So good for you for doing that. I know a lot has happened in your life since. I believe you met your girlfriend Ryan.
Yes.
There, right? Yes. Okay. That's a big part of your life, obviously.
College. Yes, big part of my life. Yes, it was amazing. We got to play together it was 2 years, because when I transferred in, it was 2019 leading into 2020, which, as we know, was COVID. And so that season got cut short. But then 2 years following that, my true senior year and then my 5th year of eligibility, we got to play together.
Okay, so you retired from the BC Eagles, obviously, aka graduated. Not retired, but graduated. And I know we talked about it a lot on this podcast, Respect Her Game, because we had Annabelle Hasselbeck on our show, and she was talking about the whole championship run and the ride and everything. So correct me if I'm wrong, you were broadcasting that weekend, right, for ESPN as a color or as an analyst?
I was, yes. I was up in the booth as an analyst that weekend, whole championship weekend, which was pretty exciting. Really fortunate to be in that spot. I was with Jay Alter, Sheehan Stanwick Birch, and Dana Boyle, and the rest of the amazing crew that was down there. It was in Cary, North Carolina. It was an awesome venue. The crowds were electric, and what more could you ask for as a lacrosse fan? Great teams, great star power all over the field, and we had some epic finishes, and it concluded with a Boston College title with a comeback victory over Northwestern. So to be able to be in the booth as an analyst for that alongside of those pretty talented TV gurus, I would say, was a unique and exciting experience. I was really honored to be there.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to draw from what Annabelle was saying. You guys have a saying as a team, and I forget what it is already. I'm sorry, but it's that helped through the comeback. What was it?
There's probably a few she may have mentioned. Did she mention dream big? Or
That's
Trying to.
one. It's not the one I'm
That's
thinking
definitely
of.
one. That's a Acacia Walker motto that we all live by as BC lacrosse players, which is to never let your dreams feel like they are too big. You know, whatever you put out there as your dream, it's achievable. If you allow yourself to believe that, and you could see it with the team that was out there on the field on Championship Sunday. They believed, even when they were down 6-0, they believed that they had what it took to win, and they had put in the hours and hours of preparation to be in that moment and to be ready for it. And they practice scenarios like that all the time, being down, being up, being in a tight game, have the ball, need the ball, whatever it is. And that coaching staff has done what a run that they've had. They've been to 7 straight national title games. That is unheard of in any sport. But to see what they've done now, being 2-time national championship winners, is, you know, it's just, I get chills saying it. And I'm just so honored to have gotten to play for them and get to know them. And I'm just so happy for them.
What was it like going from, and many former players go into the booth or they do color commentary or analysis, but I feel like for you, very quick turnaround. So it's not like you played with these people, you know them very well. What was it like watching them go down 6-0, and then when the comeback started, what was your gut saying? Where you're like, yep, they're gonna get this done, or were you at the edge of your seat?
I actually, you know, even when they went down 6-0, you know, once they started to string a few goals together, I was like, you know, this team is resilient. If I know anything, I know that they're never going to quit. And same with the coaching staff. So it was really cool being up in the booth, watching them, you know, come back in that game and ultimately win the title. The adjustment from field to then be in the booth has been a great experience. I've been so fortunate to learn from a lot of mentors in this space as I've transitioned into the role as a color commentator for lacrosse. I've done a number of different styles. I've been in the booth, in a 3-person booth. I've been, you know, with a play-by-play and myself. I've also been on the sideline for some games. I've done men's and women's college lacrosse. I've also done some men's professional lacrosse for the PLL when I'm not playing in my professional, you know, schedule for Athletes Unlimited. So it's been a really exciting journey. I've loved learning. You know, I'm inspired by people like you who have broken barriers and have really paved the way for, you know, women to be in this space and to use their voice and to be able to share and do things that they love, and talk about the beauty of sports and all the great stories that lie, you know, in between, you know, whether it's a on the field, on the ice situation. There's so much more to it, and getting to kind of dive into that with the great team I've had around me has been really fun.
You're very obviously personable and charismatic, and it doesn't seem like you would shy away from TV, or it doesn't look like, obviously here on this podcast, you know, you're not nervous at all. What was the transition like? Was it as easy as you make it seem, or were there any moments where you're like, oh crap, I'm nervous? Like your knowledge is there, so that's one thing you don't have to worry about. Whereas someone like myself who didn't play professionally, when I'm covering a sport I didn't play, you know, I spend 90% of my time researching, making sure I know everything. How I come across on camera, which camera do I look to, like that kind of stuff makes me less nervous. It's making sure I'm like doing the team, the sport, the athlete justice. You've got that knowledge, you've played, you can really give color from experience. What was the other side like miking up? I don't know if they made you put on makeup or powdered you up, or your outfits, all of that. What was that first experience like?
It's so funny you say that, because I feel like I'm a little bit of the reverse kind of start and jolt into this world of TV. I feel like I could lean on my knowledge of the game, whether it was the men's game or the women's game, and I felt like I was more nervous about the TV aspect of where to look, how I come across, pace and cadence and tone of voice, all that kind of stuff. But again, I had amazing mentors, and I still do, who are helping me get better each game and each situation that I'm in. And the first time actually that I got to try sideline out was at the ACC Women's Lacrosse Tournament last year. So not this past year, but the year prior in 2023. And funny story, I was down doing, I think it was my second interview of the day, and it was with two players who had just finished their game, moving on to the next round, semifinal round. And they were up in the booth, and Jay Alter and Sheehan Stanwick Birch tossed down to me to start the interview. But I didn't realize, obviously people are in your ear telling you what to do, and the producer's helping out. But I didn't realize when he actually tossed down to me that I was on live TV. I thought there was a break in between, or maybe it was being taped. But I quickly learned when they tossed down to me and I said, "Am I on?" as I was standing next to the two people I was interviewing, I was on live TV, and they said, "Yep, you're on." And I was like, "Wow, okay, that was definitely an embarrassing moment." But I definitely had nerves as I went throughout the first season, and I did a number of different roles, and I think I was most nervous for the sideline role just because I didn't have as much experience, obviously, in that role in interviewing people. But I tried to lean on my knowledge of the game and lean on the help of the people around me to really incorporate some of that into the questions I was asking, or little things I was trying to weave into the broadcast. So I feel like I've grown a lot from year one to year two, but that's just a credit to all the people who are working behind the scenes and helping me along the way.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an adjustment. And, those bloopers, as long as there's no swear words in between, they do make for funny TV. I have had my own bloopers, and the list keeps growing for sure. But I think that's definitely one of the keys, is just to roll with it and so on and so forth. Like, you have the knowledge, and that's the nice part, is that, and I was mentioning this on last week's episode with Natalie Nouri. I still have imposter syndrome sometimes, but mostly I just get so stressed out about doing the sport justice. With hockey, I've covered it for so long that I feel comfortable there. But, I've covered so many different sports that I didn't know much about, like swimming and diving, skiing and snowboarding, and curling in Canada is pretty big. So that part, it's like, if you make a mistake and the knowledge isn't fully there, then you're just kind of in your own head, and you're like, "Oh my God, am I even cut out for this? Like, what am I doing here? Why did I pick this job?"
Totally.
Whereas if you're making blunders, if you are on air, but people know your resume, it's a little easier, just to swallow and kind of move on. But I always love hearing someone's first experience with like live TV or the IFB. So a lot of people don't realize too, when I'm on doing Bruins games, we'll have a certain direction, and it'll be like, go to A, B, C, and D. But something might happen where, C isn't ready, or something's happened in the control room, or we've run out of time, or a player's ready earlier than we thought, so we got to jump in. And the producer's in your ear saying, while you're talking, or while the guests or the analysts are talking to you, so you should be listening, you're getting direction from somewhere else. Did you ever have anything like that, where the IFB's just like freaking you out? Or you not, as an analyst, I imagine you're probably not getting a lot of the direction. It's the host. But do you have a story of that first experience with the producer in your ear?
I think it kind of threw me a little bit at the beginning. I don't have as good of a story with that one. I think the situation when I was on the sideline interviewing, it was a situation where the players were ready and we had to get down to the interview quickly, a little bit faster than anticipated. So that is what led to me asking if we were on. But having someone in your ear, it's really helpful. But it can be overwhelming at times. Like you said, I mean, you've done so many different sports. You've been in so many different arenas and in different situations. And it's all about pivoting and adjusting when you need to, and being on your toes. And I think about my playing days and being on the field, and a lot of sports is being able to adjust in game, and being able to keep up with the fast pace, and adapting to whatever situation that you're in. And highly communicative teams are the ones that are successful. And so I kind of think about that in terms of having someone communicate from the truck, or having somebody next to you communicating with you up in the booth, or whether you're on the sideline. I think that that communication is so helpful. But there are times where I'm a little bit overwhelmed, and I'm trying to process what I'm going to say, or what direction I want to go in, but also kind of listen and feel for where we need to be, and what's coming next. So it's definitely an adjustment. I think the best way to get better, as I've learned, is repetition. And so I've tried to do as much as I possibly can, and learn as much as I possibly can. Same thing in sports. Watching film is so helpful. I think, as painful as it is to listen to my
Oh,
own voice, it's something I really
worst.
don't
It's the
like to
worst.
do.
It doesn't get easier. It doesn't get easier. It's the worst. I hate it. I hate watching myself back,
I
but
do
go on.
too,
Yes.
but I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. But I think that's where I realize the most, with direction of people helping who have listened to the game, giving me tips, and tidbits about where I can be better. I think listening is brutally painful, but it does help me realize, where I should slow down, what I need to, lay out for here and there, and all that kind of stuff. And so it is helpful to watch some film.
So you mentioned, what's next kind of. You have a lot of options, a lot of things that you're doing and plan to be doing. So first tell us kind of what you're up to, maybe not day to day, but week to week, month to month. Where are you keeping busy? Obviously professionally, and then you have this broadcast side, and then plans for the future as you look to prepare for the Olympics.
That's an awesome question. I'm excited about what's ahead, and my schedule is a little bit all over the place just because I love being able to do different types of things. Like you mentioned, the broadcasting has been phenomenal, and it's been a great experience. I've loved it. I've loved learning and growing in that aspect, and I'm very fortunate that I also get to keep playing at a pretty high level. So I play professionally for Athletes Unlimited, which is a lacrosse league that is under Athletes Unlimited, but they also run other women's professional leagues. They have a basketball league, a volleyball league, and a softball league. And so we're one of the 4 professional sports leagues that they have, and we play in the summertime. So shortly after this week, I'll be heading down to Maryland to start our preseason and our training to get ready for our slew of games that we'll have at the Sparks, Maryland venue that we play at, which is really fun. And it's a great format. It's 56 of the best women's lacrosse players in the world. So it's highly competitive. And it's on TV. It's on the ESPN Plus platforms. And so it's great access for the younger generations who want to watch pretty high level lacrosse. And I also play for the U.S. national team. There's an indoor box team, which is pretty similar to hockey in terms of style. It's not on ice, of course, but it's a pretty similar setup, and we're in full pads and running shifts out of the box. So it's pretty similar to hockey, really fast pace. And then there's also an outdoor team, so the traditional style of lacrosse that you're used to seeing. And so I've been fortunate to have won a gold medal with that team in 2022, and I hope to continue my journey of training with that team and ultimately chasing that dream of being in the Olympics in 2028, which will actually be a different format of lacrosse, which is the third format. It's sixes lacrosse, which basically is a shorter and faster version of the game that we see in the outdoor venues. We see traditionally on the men's and women's side, it's 10v10 or 12v12, and it's a bigger field, football size field. And there are more traditional roles or positions. There are defenders, midfielders, and attackers, sort of similar to soccer, how people play in different spots. And then in sixes lacrosse, it's a little bit more like basketball. So it's 5 versus 5 plus a goalie, and it's up and back, constant action, a lot higher scoring. Goalies are seeing a ton of shots. And so it's a little bit faster, and it's a little more aligned with the men's and the women's games being similar. And so I think that's the goal as lacrosse enters into the Olympics, just making it as accessible and easy to understand and digest, but also as exciting as possible and showcasing the beauty of the sport of lacrosse. So I'm excited to continue to train hard every day, get better, and be pushed by my teammates, push them, and work towards the goal of a gold medal.
Yes, another one. And this time you're looking for an Olympic gold medal. But man, your resume is so packed already. And it sounds like you're keeping so busy with so many different formats and leagues. And then, of course, as I mentioned, this broadcasting side. So, first of all, best of luck to you in the upcoming games. You mentioned you're going to Maryland, in the tournaments, in the training. I can assume, one should never assume, but I can assume you're going to be on our show again. You're an excellent co-host and guest, and it was a really pleasure getting to know you. Maybe we can deep dive more into things in the following weeks. But Charlotte, it was awesome to have you on. Thanks so much for being here.
You're the best. This was awesome. I'm so pumped for the future, and I have loved watching you crush everything that you do. So I'm excited to dive into some awesome conversations with you, but thanks for having me on today. It was a blast.
Thank you. And thanks everyone to listening to Respect Her Game.